Welcome to part 3 in our very high-level overview of the basics of online and hybrid course design. In this video, we're going to focus on accessibility, meaning the choices that we make and what we do in our online courses to make sure that they are accessible to users who have many different types of abilities and may have physical disabilities and are using the web with assistive technology, and universal design. Using the foundational concepts of universal design for learning to inform our online and hybrid course design decisions. I'm making an assumption that you are already familiar with universal design for learning. And so think about the way that those basic UDL principles could inform your online and hybrid course design choices. So for example, multiple means of engagement. So the different ways that students are motivated to learn and how students' cultural and linguistic and prior experiences can inform the way that they come to education and come to learning. Think about how you can actively bring that to your online course space and give students autonomy and choice whenever possible. Multiple means of representation, so having materials available in various formats. For example, if you are going to do a video lecture, you may also provide a written transcript for students, or you may link to a blog post or article so that students who learn well from videos have that opportunity, students who learn well from reading have that opportunity. So thinking about as much as possible having multiple means of representation. And then finally, multiple means of action and expression, so the different ways that students can show their learning. And you can bring that to the online course space, of course, and you'll want to. You don't want every assessment to be a quiz, right? Because not every student is very good at taking quizzes. So think about offering, again, student choice, encouraging autonomy, and helping students choose the different ways that they can express their learning and demonstrate their learning. Students could make short videos, they could write a paper, they could do a presentation, and that could all be a way of demonstrating the same exact learning outcome. So thinking about universal design for learning and really making sure that your design choices are founded in those principles will create more equitable learning experiences for students and make sure that your course is accessible to the greatest number of students possible. I'm now going to cover the basics of web-based accessibility. There is a lot more to know about this topic, and I encourage you to work with your disability resource coordinator and to educate yourself. And I'll share some materials to help you do that self-education. But what we'll talk about here are some of the basics of what you can do in your course design to make sure that your course is accessible to users who may be using assistive technologies. So for example, if you have a visually impaired student who is using a screen reader to read websites out loud and navigate the web in that way, you will need to integrate that into your course design decisions to make sure that your course is accessible to all students. Our first fundamental is simple, consistent navigation. And I know that I have said this again and again, but it's one of the most important things you can do as you design your online and hybrid course for all of your students, and definitely for students who are using assistive technologies. So the example that I have up on this slide is a template syllabus from MCLA. And so when faculty choose to use this syllabus template, they are choosing to have a more consistent experience for students. And so thinking about using things like templates that can be shared between faculty is a great way to help students get that consistency. When everyone's course looks and feels and functions very differently, that can be challenging for all students, but it's certainly challenging for students who are using and relying on assistive technologies to navigate your course space. Here's another example of simple, consistent navigation at the module level. So again, this is a template, and this is something that you and your colleagues could certainly design and work on. In this template, we have the module with a numbered module, and then a title, whatever the topic is. Here is the module title with the overview and to-do list, right? It's always great to start your module with that overview and a document that will tell students exactly what they need to do. We then have the module content, so the materials and resources and activities right below that. Notice that these are also indented, which shows a relationship here. And then finally, the module wrap-up and looking ahead. It's a very simple template, but if you follow this for every single module in your course, you will be helping all students navigate that space, and you will certainly be helping your students who are using tools such as assistive technology to interact with your online course space. All video and audio content in your course should be closed captioned or have an accompanying transcript, so that students who have hearing impairments, students who are attempting to learn in noisy or busy or chaotic environments, perhaps students who are English language learners, have an equitable opportunity to interact with that content. So there are ways and tools to help with this captioning. As a very quick example, if you upload a video to YouTube, YouTube will provide auto captioning, which you can then go in and edit. And the auto captioning is often pretty good, so you can use those auto captions and then go in there and clean it up, edit it. You could even download that to also use as a transcript. One other note, if you are making your own video content, we always recommend starting with a script, and if you do that, you then have your transcript ready to go. So make sure that any sort of audio or video content that you are sharing with students or requiring students to interact with in your course is also has an accompanying transcripts or closed captioning, so another way that students can interact with and access that content. Images should always have what we call alt text. Alt text is embedded into the image. You would see that is if you hover over an image while you're surfing the web, and alt text should describe the image to someone who cannot see the image. A screen reader will read the alt text of an image out loud. And the great thing about Canvas is that it will prompt you for that alt text. So it will have you incorporate that alt text automatically as you are uploading and sharing images. Color should never be used alone to convey meaning to students, so that students who are colorblind can still understand and access and know significance equitably, the same that other students in the class who are not colorblind know that. So in this example here, the sentence in red says, "Don't forget that these case studies must be typed with perfect grammar, syntax, and spelling, or they won't be accepted." That's a pretty important statement. But if a student is not able to distinguish red text from black text, then that student is at a disadvantage to their peers, and we don't want that. A better choice here would be to put this sentence in bold or italics to signal in some other way beyond simply using color to signal meaning. You want to use meaningful names for your URLs, so for your hyperlinks. This first example here, click here and click here, these are not meaningful names. A student with a screen reader is not going to easily be able to distinguish between these two, and honestly, it's confusing for all students. So avoid the click here, that is not a meaningful name for a hyperlink. And then take a look at this second example. Putting the entire hyperlink in, a screen reader will read every single letter and character of that hyperlink. Don't do that to your students. It's also messy and it's going to be confusing to your students. So think back to cognitive load. This asks students to put more cognitive energy into figuring out what this is, and we don't want that. So this example here in the middle, we also don't want to paste hyperlinks in this way with the entire link there. So check out example 3. Here's what you want to do. Have your hyperlinks and give them meaningful titles so that it's clear what they are and what they're linking to. Finally, for the good of all of your students, and especially your students who have disabilities, think about text readability. You want your text to be as consistently formatted and readable as possible. If you look at this example here, this very, very tiny blue text, it's blue, right? We don't want to use color with our text. We typically want to have black text on a white background. You want to have a really high contrast with the color of your text. And then also it's just so small that it's almost impossible to read. And this contains really important information. This is the phone number for the help desk. So think about your course readability, think about your text readability, and really consider all of these design options as you are building your course in Canvas. We've reached the end of our basics video series here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this has been helpful in giving you that very high level overview of the best practices in online and hybrid course design, and that this also gives you something to talk to your colleagues about as you work together to design your online courses. No matter what, make sure that you are letting your teaching decisions guide your design choices, not the technology, as much as you possibly can. And do that planning ahead of time. Plan on paper, really work it through, share it with others for feedback, and really work it out so that you know what your course design is going to look like. You have all of your instructions clearly written, and then build in Canvas. If you start there, you'll save yourself time, you'll save yourself frustration, and you'll be better able to consider all of these best practices that we've explored in this video series.